Hello folks, if you would like some really cool models over the next few weeks heading into the summer, then make sure you go and support Minimaker. They are an amazing website that do me a lot of favours and a lot of good stuff for the channel, so if you can go over there and support them, you will get 10% off your order if you use the promo code Northern Exile at checkout. They do some amazing models like these. Things like this that you can get from over there are fantastic quality. They come in the post rather quickly, and they do worldwide shipping for €10. So even Aussie people, they've got you covered. I've got some of these myself. I'm building some of the artillery guns to be used for the Ether Wolves in our current tournament. I'm loving those right now. But you can get these sent directly to your house for, not a lot of money. They are very good alternatives to companies like Games Workshop if you want to use those proxies in those games, or whatever games you want. This is a Blood Bowl team here that's kind of like Orcs from Grand Cathay, which I really like. Like Oriental Orcs. You've got to love them. Anyway, hopefully you can go over there and give them some love, and if you can't, then subscribe to the channel. Always helps me out, and it's free to do. So, let's jump into some hobby nightmares, shall we? Right, we have a few to get through today. This is a bumper session. This is a good one, so let's jump in. We have... Would this guy like to be anonymous? Yes, he would. So we've got Mark here. Hello, Mark. And he says, "Hey, North. I'm Mark, a lifelong gamer and currently a laid-off game developer." Well, I'm sorry to hear that. "I'm providing a LinkedIn profile so you can verify that I am who I say I am, though I prefer not to be doxxed, thank you." Okay, yeah, no problem. I found you on YouTube in the last few months. I really love listening. You seem like a great dude, and your rants tend to parallel my own. Thank you very much, man. I did have a look at you on LinkedIn. You're a very talented gentleman, so hopefully you get a job soon, man. As most grey-bearded gamers can, I have a host of hobby nightmares to pick from, but I'm going to go with one that is apparently sadly all too common in the 40k space, since this is very similar to a nightmare I heard on your own YouTube channel, alright? I'm going to name and shame a megacorp a little here. Ooh, but it's integral to the story. I did a stint at Google, which was an exciting and interesting experience. How could it not be, right? I mean, Vince Vaughn was in a movie about working there. It must be amazing and filled with the world's brightest minds. Right? I don't think... No, I think massive corporations, you're going to get a smorgasbord of people in there, do you know what I mean? I've worked in corporations before, one or two, and most of them are idiots, Anyway, enter the Google Warhammer 40,000 Club. They've got one? Wow, cool. Shortly after I started at the company, an email went around that a 40k club was starting up at the company. 8th edition had just come out, and after having been driven from the brand by Games Workshop's business practices years prior, I decided this would be a great way of both networking with my new co-workers, as well as dipping my toes back into the 40k IP, the lore and setting of which I cherish deeply. I hadn't played since 2nd edition. Drukhari were just arriving as I made my way out of the hobby, so I was eager to see how the hobby had progressed. On top of that, it's Google, Surely some insanely cool campaigns were in my destiny, given the calibre of people there. The club was organised by a guy who came off as very knowledgeable and professional, as well as experienced at teaching the game. In fact, he stated that he ran tournaments for a few local game stores, which had massive gaming areas at the time, so I was duly quite impressed. The group was about a dozen people, numbering roughly even in terms of gender, with only myself and one other guy having any previous 40k experience. This sounds good. It does sound like there's too many beginners. Do you know what I mean? That can be a thing, which means, it goes either amazingly well, where you're all learning together and everybody's fine and everyone's happy, or it goes the other way, where, half the people just stop turning up after the first week, or even they leave in the first session, you know what I mean? Anyway, let's just move on. The other guy in that scenario had also not played since 2nd edition, but showed up with a lovely, fully painted Bael'tan Eldar army that you could tell he really loved and had worked hard on. It really was great for the rest of the group to see how proud this guy was of his work. Not in a rude or arrogant way, but it was plain that he had put in the time and was proud of what he had achieved. I noticed that seeing this got a lot of group members excited to start their own armies. I want to stress this, it wasn't the painting which was good, but his attitude and enthusiasm that got them engaged. The first few meetings went well, and we started off by using borrowed Black Templars to learn the basics of movement, squads, shooting, etc. over the course of the first 3 to 4 meetings. Then came the time for the first meeting where we put everything together and ran a demo battle, in which the entire group would spectate a game between the organizer and one of the players. That's a bad way of learning. Especially 40k. You need to learn by doing. I'm going to be honest with you. If you watch 40k, like on live streams, I think you're a very special person in more ways than one. 40k is really boring to watch. Just sorry, it is. It's really cool to play, but it's really boring to watch. Right? It's really... It is a phone checker of an activity. Don't do this. Don't have people sit there watching you play a game of 40k. They're going to learn nothing. The mind's going to wander. It's boring, right? Just have them play games between themselves with you watching over them. That's the way it should go, not the other way around. Anyway. Since the Eldar guy was the only one with a full army, he was chosen to play against the organizer's Tau. Now, having run many tabletop role-playing game and wargame campaigns over the years, my personal instinct would be to simply get some guys on the table, move some units around, show how the overall mechanics of the game fit together, such as morale, objectives, victory points, and so on. What I proceeded to watch for the rest of the meeting was this Eldar player's spirit getting inexorably crushed anytime he tried to do anything. As the vastly more experienced club organizer pulled 0 punches and was absolutely playing to win with every fibre of his being. Nothing, and I repeat, nothing, that could have contributed to this tower player's victory was sacrificed on the altar of teaching this room full of prospective new players the game. You know, or sportsmanship for that matter. The nail in the coffin for me was, after watching how this tower player had an answer for every single thing the Eldar player tried, seeing 2 shell-shocked striking scorpions finally making it into close combat with the crisis suits, only to have them use some ability to leap away and then shoot them to death. His last chance to kill a single Tau had died with them. The uncomfortable tone of the room was like a palpable fog building up. This isn't a commentary on Google, man. This is this one guy. This is this one guy and a load of poor employees who just want to learn 40k. This guy literally had... If you work for a company like Google, right, or Facebook or something, which has nerds in it, right, you have prime real estate to get people into something like 40k. This guy was given the keys to the castle and decided to just wreck this Eldar player's day. Just tank the entire thing. Oh my god. It just got worse and worse as Slanesh slowly took bite-sized nibbles out of his poor soul while we watched the Eldar players' chances of victory, chances of ever playing 40k again, and all our collective lunch hour get whittled away to absolutely nothing. You did this in a lunch hour? You can't play a game of 40k in a lunch hour. Doesn't matter how small it is. 500 points to take you more than an hour, right? For new people, right? For newbies, if one of you is new, it's going to take you more than an hour to do 500 points. Sorry, just is. There were no subsequent meetings of the Google Warhammer 40,000 Club, to my knowledge. Dude, that sucks. As I said, a company like Google is filled with people who want to do things like 40k. Oh, that's horrible. Are you sure, like Google's a big company, right? Are you sure, like, there's not another club somewhere else? I bet there is. I bet there is. In hindsight, I do scold myself somewhat for not giving this guy a dressing down right then and there, though it's also worth remembering that at companies like this, there is a firm hierarchy in place, and it's much easier for me to wish I'd said something in hindsight than it was to risk my job and potentially career over what had just occurred. Yeah, not worth it. Not worth it. You did the right thing. It was just so strange to see somebody completely have zero ability to read the room, predict how his choices might affect the future of the project he was working on, and essentially behave in a manner one would if they were actively trying to torpedo the club. Anyway, even if you don't end up using this, I hope you get a kick out of it. Take it easy, man. Cheers. Okay, I just think this is a guy who's, like, stoked to play a game of 40k. That's why he's done the club, right? He's stoked. He wants to play 40k. And so he did. and tanked the club in the process. Now, what you should have done is what you just did there, but maybe talk to the Baltan Eldar guy and say, hey, man, I'll play with you. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of a thing. Don't give up on it. Don't give up on it. And Google people, don't give up on it. Just this one guy, you know, bad behaviour, fair enough, but don't give up. Carry on. Play some 40k. You know, it might help my analytics. Yay. Anyway, moving on. Our next one is from... you've not told me to not use your real name, so we're going to use your real name. It's Derek. Alright, how's it going, man? And he says, Hi, North. I'm sending this because, against all reason, the Games Workshop store in Raleigh, North Carolina is still without a manager after 2 months. Ooh, a cry to help. Raleigh, North Carolina. Okay. Alrighty. The previous manager had been with Games Workshop for close to 15 years and was let go at the end of January after it was decided that he was violating policy by allowing customers to purchase models he had in store that Games Workshop had discontinued. Alright, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think that's the only reason he got sacked. Just saying. Yeah, you might get a telling off for that, but you wouldn't get sacked for it, right? You're still selling stuff at the end of the day. They don't care about that. I'm telling you now, Derek, they don't care about that, mate. They really don't. If money's going in the till, they couldn't give less of a shit. I sold discontinued stuff all the time because I was trying to clear out the backlog. I sold War Master, dude. And I got a phone call from Games Workshop saying, well done. Like, you managed to sell War Master. Wow. Where did you have that? I was like, it was in the back somewhere. Some guy just came in asking for it. He just came in saying, do I have any War Master on the off chance? I went in the back, I saw 3 boxes, sold them to him. And he was like, great, good. See you later. That was it, right? So that's not the reason he got sacked. Okay? If he's told you that's the reason he got sacked, I'm not sure that's the reason he got sacked. If policy has changed since I was there, this may well be true, right? It may well be absolutely true that that's why he got sacked. But in my experience, they don't sack you for things like that, okay? All right, moving on. He is a pillar of the community and was responsible for such feats as organising a yearly Secret Santa through the store that had over 200 participants this past Christmas season. No other Games Workshop location, including Warhammer World, has reached anywhere near that number of participants. Thankfully, he was immediately offered employment by regulars who followed him to his new employer for hobby goods. That's good. That's good. So he's fine. Excellent. Wonderful. Wonderful stuff. I would like to know... I wouldn't like to know, but I would be very interested to know why he left. Why? Was he actually sacked or did he leave? You know what I mean? You told me he got fired, but you wouldn't be fired, especially not after 15 years. You know, I think this guy has had warnings for different things in the past, you know? Maybe he's given a discount in the past, or maybe, you know what I mean? Like, and things have crept up over time to when they've gone, look, you know what, we're just going to get a new manager in, see you later, that kind of a thing. But this one thing alone, they wouldn't have sacked him for that, right? Games Workshop like money. If they can sell you old models, like worthless plastic, that they don't even support anymore for money, that's free money, dude. They're not going to sack you for it. Anyway. That said, the Games Workshop store sits closed with customers' orders and community members' painted models in the display case locked behind closed doors. I know a handful of people who have interviewed for the manager position, but everyone has been turned down without any reason given. The job posting on the recruitment page is being pushed back every single week, and the only communication with the community has been on the store's Facebook page, where the Games Workshop retail tells us over and over that they will let us know when they find someone to manage the store. We will be able to pick up our orders and collect our models from the display cabinet, and so on and so forth. Well, for those of you who are watching the video, if you're near Raleigh, North Carolina, and you think you can do a good job as a Games Workshop manager, now's the time. Tell them North sent you. Get in there. The most insulting thing that Games Workshop Retail has done is post directly to the store's Facebook page asking community members to apply for the store manager position instead of using their recruitment page to advertise the position. Why is that a bad thing? It went over horribly with the community. Many people were informed of the manager's firing through this post, and decided to voice their displeasure in the replies. It was especially asinine to ask members of the community to apply after many of us had already applied and been rejected, with the leading theory being that Games Workshop Retail doesn't want to hire anybody connected to the previous manager, which is a tall ask considering he managed the location for an entire decade or more. After maybe a week or so, the post was deleted off the page. I sit here looking at the job posting, having been pushed back yet another week, knowing that the job market in the US is in rough shape right now, and people are having trouble getting hired anywhere, especially after so many government employees have lost their jobs recently. The store has been closed for around 2 months now, and there hasn't been any sign that Games Workshop Retail will do anything to change that. They clearly don't care about how much money they're missing out on, or everything their customers are missing out on with the store being closed. At this point, I can only assume that they're trying to starve out the community out of spite. Cheers. Here's the thing. I'm slowly learning this from Kaifa over on What the 40k. Never confuse incompetence for malice, right? I don't think that's what they're doing. I just think I do honestly think maybe they do not want people connected to the previous manager to be getting the job. Fair enough. Yeah, I can see your point on that one. That's fine. But also, I think there's a bit of that, but I also think there's a lot of they're making so much money hand over fist, they're waiting till the right person comes along, which can happen, right? Maybe they're closing the store and going to a new location. That might also be a thing that they're doing, low-key. That things are going on behind the scenes, so you never know. With Games Workshops that I've seen go without a manager, like my old store and things, it does take a while for a new manager to come in that they're happy with, because you've got to remember, like they're weirdly. How about this? The other way. The other scenario, right? You're saying your guy did a really good job, right? So what if your guy left and wasn't sacked? That would, like, recontextualize the entire thing, wouldn't it? Because now Games Workshop aren't not wanting another person from his group. They want somebody who will... One sec, sorry. Sorry. So I've been talking too much today, I've been doing several meetings. They will want somebody who will measure up to him, right? So the whole context changes. If he's left, or even if he was sacked for basically one too many things, right? He's like, okay, you now need to leave because you've done like 5 things that we don't like, that we've warned you not to do, and you keep doing them, right? Even if that's the case, they will still want another manager who's going to be as good as the last guy, right? So it might be that. It might be they're holding out for, like, the unicorn to come along and say, we need this guy to come in, and we don't want the store to tank. We want the guy to come in and hit the ground running. Maybe they're waiting for that guy. You never know. That's my opinion, anyway. Or maybe they're being malicious, as you said. I don't know. I'm not in this situation. But it would surprise me if they were being that malicious because, again, Games Workshop like money, and they're far more incompetent than they are malicious. Just saying. As every corporation is. Every corporation is this unwieldy thing, especially in America, because we're not an American company, right? I say we, we're not we anymore, but, Games Workshop are not an American company. They're a British company, right? So there's a lot of lag there. A lot of people in America get away with things in their stores that you wouldn't in the UK. Why? Because of that same lag. There's leadership lag. It comes from the UK and it spreads across the rest of the world. If you're in America, you will get away with things in your store that you wouldn't in the UK. Running tournaments being one, right? I hear that all the time. In America, you guys play tournaments in Games Workshop stores all the time. You don't do that in our Games Workshop stores. You are not allowed. And the Eye of Sauron is on you in the UK. Do you know what I mean? So it works both ways. Anyway, on to our next Hobby Nightmare is from Jackson. How's it going, Jackson, dude? And he says, North. Jackson here. This will be a quick one, as I'm typing it out on my lunch break, but I wanted to write in about my time at Games Workshop as a store body. I came to the company in the early 2000s. It was a heady time of emo music, and it's only now looking back at it that I realise how much of an era, quote-unquote, the early 2000s was. I was always jealous of people living in the 1980s, but the 2000s will also have its place in time, in my opinion. It will not be long before we get a Stranger Things style something that is based in the 2000s. We are getting sunset-drenched TV series based in the 2000s like it's some sort of mythical time. Trust me, that's on its way, alright? One thing about this time period, though, whilst the internet was being used and was about, and there were also mobile phones in general, it was still much harder to keep track of what people were doing compared to today. For my manager, Keith, well, he used this to full effect. Alright. This is interesting. Whilst working at the store, I was having a great old time. Keith was genuinely a great guy and would enforce our 2-hour painting breaks a day where he insisted we sit down and paint our own models at the front window of the store to advertise the hobby to people passing by. He would stride around the store waiting for customers to come in who were curious as to what we were doing. It worked a charm. His numbers were up and, more importantly, his recruitment numbers were very high, which was awesome even back then. Keith was a charming, good-looking fellow, able to talk the birds out of the trees, and so was a natural salesman for products like 40k and Warhammer Fantasy Battles. I did notice over time that a few of the mums heading into the store would be coming in as if dressed for a night out, or at least nicely done up as if fresh from a salon or something, even at 6 PM after leaving work. Have you ever been somewhere where you hear something and it just flips into your brain and refuses to compute for a while, but it's still in there? I was getting that whenever anybody in the store talked about Keith's experience with these women. It was all hints and winks, nudge nudge, that kind of thing. The entire store was a store of bros keeping omerta, but knowing exactly what Keith was doing. Sleeping with several of these mums at the same time. Now, okay, I'm going to say this, right? This is bad behaviour, but as a bloke, you just let it, you're like, you know what? You don't rumble him. No, it's fine. That's between y'all. It's fine, you know. You don't encourage it, but you're like, no, I keep my own counsel, keep my own business. Good luck to him. You know what I mean? That kind of a thing. Yeah. There was a similar story you actually told a while ago that was about a load of girlfriends cheating on their boyfriends with a Games Workshop manager. Well, this isn't as bad as all that. These were single mums, though. The more I thought about it, the more I did kind of feel bad for them. These were mums looking for an ideal partner for their kid, and Keith was kind of using that to sling his dick around. It did come back to bite him, though. I don't agree, man. I don't agree. I think a lot of you guys put women on pedestals, right? A lot of you guys tend to put... Dude, women are, by and large, more dirty than we are. I'm telling you. But they're dirty for the right guy, right? That's how it works. If you've never come across this, you probably haven't come across anybody where you're the right guy for them yet, right? You know what I mean? But, yeah, women are like this. I'm sorry, they are. A few of them will be using him for exactly the same reason he's using them. I'm telling you now. You know, lonely single mums. A lot of single mums, by the way, are glad to be alone because they're just like, wow, I've got no guy around doing my head in. I get to do whatever I want. It's a bit harder, but I get to do whatever I want, right? And a few of these women will be literally treating this guy as, I get to go in and have my fun, and then he doesn't bother me, right? Sorry, that's just the way the world works. So, yeah, don't put people on pedestals, because you might find that maybe they don't want saving. Maybe they're having a really good time, and you going in there like the White Knight makes you look like a dick. I don't know. You know, don't get me wrong, there'll be a few of these women who will be hurt by what's going on, but I don't know. People aren't stupid. Especially women. They have a sixth sense for bullshit. I'm telling you now. Right? They have a weird... I've said this story before. There was once... I was moving into a new house in London, and my girlfriend was there with me. She came and met everybody who was in the house. And one girl who was from Newcastle came downstairs and was just talking to us, you know. Was talking to me, and I was oblivious because my radar was off, you know. And just being just nice. She wasn't flirting, wasn't doing anything. She just had this energy about it, you know. And my girlfriend, as soon as she left the room, went, I don't like her. I was like, what? Why? The way she was speaking to you, I don't like it. I was like, what? You're crazy. Like, what's wrong with you? You know? Lo and behold, right? When I'd broken up with that girlfriend, literally a week later, I'm shacking up with this other girl. Like, she's literally jumped straight in. Because she knew what she wanted from the start, right? So, women have a sixth sense for these kind of things. If there's a feeling in the room, most women will go, and we'll know that feeling is there. It's weird. It's very, very, very strange how they do it. Vibes, man. They get it. So a lot of these girls who are sleeping with Keith will know what's going on, or will have an inkling of the kind of guy Keith is. But they do it anyway because, you know, I don't know, I'm getting my fun, whatever, you know, that kind of a thing. So again, pedestals, don't use them. No one needs them. Moving on. We will call this villain in our story Dave, as per tradition. Dave was an average-looking lad, but always had to be doing something better than you. I think you've mentioned in the past something like, you know, and I quote, if you've recently been to Tenerife, he's just got back from 11erife, unquote, or something to that nature. Yeah, it is one of my favourite things to say, because a lot of people like that in the hobby. That was Dave. A jealous, insecure person who was always ready to critique your models and couldn't handle anybody doing anything better than him, ever. Beyond this, he was a decent bloke. He just had this massive chink in his armour and chip on his shoulder about being number one. We started calling him Bono after that one South Park episode where Bono is obsessed about not being number two, because he's actually a giant piece of shit. Okay. Anyway, it was very clear that Dave was jealous of the attention Keith would get from the ladies in the store. He would often try to pull Dave away from such conversations and would spread rumours about how his conduct was, and I quote, absolutely awful and bringing the company's name into dispute. I think he means disrepute, but okay. That's weak-ass behaviour, by the way. This is a little bottom feeder who can't get the attention of women, so he has to drag somebody else down, right? Yeah, snitches get stitches, and that's all I'm saying. This came to a head when, you guessed it, somebody went to head office to tell them of Keith's exploits, and also to email the ladies in question, CCing them into this corporate Games Workshop complaint. Wow. He got their email addresses from our tournament sign-up sheet. This is how we knew it was him. All the rest of the lads in the store were either silently cheering Keith on, or just not the kind of people to be bitchy little grasses. Needless to say, none of those mums came back to the store, nor did their kids or their kids' friends. The store now had a rep, and so recruitment numbers dried up. Keith got an official visit and a final written warning straight away, and, as business started to go down generally, he started getting phone calls and harassment from head office about this. They had decided he had to go, but didn't have the balls to just sack the guy. They passive-aggressively ground him down until he left of his own accord. Can relate? It sucked, and this was a slow downfall too, happening over 2 years of near constant stress for him, with him finally leaving at the start of the 2010s. Dave loved every second of it, of course, at least initially. During a large Saturday event, Ethan, one of the lads and a friend of Keith's, called out Dave in front of everybody for being a grass and tanking what was a good thing for everybody, the store being busy and happy. Ethan was leaving for university, so didn't give a shit about burning any bridges. When Dave looked at us for support, we all shrugged and agreed with Ethan. Keith just wanted out at this point, so really didn't care and wanted to get on with the game that day. Now, there was plausible deniability on Dave's part, and he did deny everything. But a few years later, I met Keith at a Foo Fighters gig. He was doing fine, IT security, he hardly works, and for good money too. And he told me that a friend of his in Games Workshop's HR department had told him, after the fact, that it was Dave who sent the emails. So yeah, case closed, Dave was a fucking rat. Wow. Wow. Yeah, this is a giant piece of shit. Dave still goes to that now empty Games Workshop. He can't play games there, or paint. He just walks around and bothers the staff because he's lonely, and was kicked out from the local wargaming club because of his creepy comments to some of the girls who were a part of the Necron Sisterhood. What a surprise. Karma is a bitch, I guess, but I still can't help but feel he got away with it. Anyway, cheers North, Jack. Dude, I was about to call out earlier on that it's always the guys like this who want to protect women, quote-unquote, who are the weirdos. It's always them. They're always the ones who are like, who don't get barriers, and then they blame everybody else for not getting barriers, and not getting, and not understanding that, no means no, and that kind of thing. These are always the guys who creep the fuck out of women, and because women want nothing to do with them, they want to ruin it for everybody else. All men are, in terms of wanting to get with women, are a load of crabs in a bucket, trying to climb out the bucket, right? And these motherfuckers are little crabs at the bottom who are never going to get out, who are pulling everybody else down with them. That's all they are. Anyway. Those are Hobby Nightmares for today. Oh, what a downer to leave it on. But anyway, I love you a long time. I will speak to you very, very, very soon. We've got more 40k Advantage tomorrow. What are we talking about tomorrow? We're talking about the Armageddon coming campaign series that Games Workshop are going back to. And we're going to be talking about what the hell is going on and maybe the plans Games Workshop have in place for that big campaign that's coming at the end of 10th edition. Alright, we'll get into that on Tuesday, and on Thursday we may be doing a video with Mordy and Glory, but if we don't, we will be covering painting imposter syndrome and how it's the worst thing ever. Alright, I love you a long time, I'll speak to you very, very, very soon. Have a good one. Bye now.